Today I'm going to be showing you how to make Speed Garage. You guys requested it, now it's here. You can get this template at the top of the description on my website. Definitely go grab that. Thanks for the support, and let's get started. We're at 144 BPM. I found this stuff to be anywhere around like 135 to 150, 152, that kind of range. Anything in between that usually is pretty good. Anything lower than that, and it might just be regular garage. The first thing we got here is this vocal chop. So it started like this. It's this sample. Oh yeah. Right? It's just a really short, just like vocal, but you can hear there's a few notes there. Oh yeah. Right? And so what I did is I actually pitched it up a bit to be in key with the track we got here. And then I just took two syllables from it. You can hear it. That ooh at the beginning. And then oh yeah. And then when it kind of flattens out there as well. Right, it's literally just two chops. It's on a quarter note, repeating, like, just really simple, just like, you know, like it literally goes with the kick. You know, this kind of music is happening very fast, and there's a lot with, like, the drums, you know, shuffling around, and the bass line, too. So I think something where it's just really flat and simple chops like that, it doesn't need to be so crazy, just down, 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 you know, like that. For the sound here, as far as like the effects, we got a bit of reverb, which you can see is really short, so I'll turn everything else off and show you what that sounds like on its own. Just like a little bit of short to give it a bit of space and kind of put it in a room too. I've noticed with this stuff, there's a lot of stereo stuff going on in these tracks. Not necessarily like any crazy, you know, magical stuff, but just, you know, putting this reverb here and making it really short so that it definitely had stereo width to it. And then other elements have stuff like that too. A bit of this OTT. If you don't know, you probably do, but just in case you don't, preset for Ableton's Multiband Dynamics, very famous. I brought the amount down a little bit so it's not so heavy, but yeah, this can really help. You can hear it gives you that really nice, airy, bright sounding vocal chop like you want. Sidechain this to the kick. You can see there's a high pass on the sidechain, so what it does is, see, it's just sidechaining to that top part of the kick, so you just get a really tight, short sidechain, because all the length is in the low end. And then a high-pass filter at the end to cut out. You can hear there's a bit of, like, kind of nasty frequencies there, so we're cutting that. Then we got our kick. Now, as far as processing, there's no effects, but I did drag the start time forward a little bit. Right, so it's just really clean, and I tuned it to the bass line as well. I think this is very important with these kind of tunes. Right, if I bring this up a few octaves, this is how I do it, is I bring it up a few octaves. Right, and then you can hear the note. Like, here's the default, what this already was at the beginning. See, it's super out of tune with the bass. And they're not as punchy together, but then if I bring it up, again, you just put it up a few octaves so you can really hear the note, and I'll just bring it up slowly. And see, the whole mix is a lot better, like the overall track grooves better because the kick and the bass are just really working. So yeah, I think that's really important, you know, and it's not necessarily effects processing, but it's like just doing that pitch stuff. The other thing I noticed with this too is you don't necessarily need the kick to be, you know, just pounding on top of the mix. There's definitely tracks where it is like that, and you can do that and it sounds good. Right, like if I bring the kick up like that. But when it comes to like the Scruz and Diffrent kind of style, like those two guys like we're talking about in this video, I've noticed sometimes the kick lays back a little bit. Yeah, you can obviously hear it's pounding, and it's still a really good punchy kick, so it doesn't really matter. But ultimately, like, it doesn't always have to be, you know, like a hard techno track like that. Then we got the bass line. So here's the bass line. We're in the key of A sharp minor. We're going root, fourth, sixth, and then another root there. 5, 3, root. Right, so it's basically this like resolving pattern. It's kind of like a riff, you know. It's really simple. Like if you put it up a few octaves, you can really hear the melody here. Right, so it's really like a melody, you know. And that's what makes the speed garage bass lines, is that it's a melody happening in a bass line. It's not necessarily just like, usually a bass line is just kind of like some low end to fit in between the drums and give it groove. This is doing that, but it's also a melody in and of itself. And the way you do that is like I'm describing here, where you use these different degrees from the scale to tell that story. And then also this thing here at the end where it goes 5-3 root, and it resolves back to the root note, but it's also up in octaves, so it's kind of like, you know, it finishes off the pattern nicely. And then by having that be the same note, like it hits A sharp at the end, and then the first note when it comes back again is A sharp, so it's very like clearly resolving itself, right? So then what we're doing here as far as the sounds, it's 2 layers. It's this operator. So this is just some FM stuff with sine waves, right? The classic UK garage kind of sound is doing that. Basically what we got here is it starts like this. We got this one sine wave, and then we have one here, which is 3 octaves up on the chorus pitch, and then I've also got the fine tune detuned a little bit. So you can see that detune is what gives it the wobble, right? Kind of throwing it off and making it have that like respace sort of motion. Plus there's this third one, which is at the original octave. If I turn that off, it doesn't need that. It's definitely cool without it, but you can hear it gives it more of that grit, right? I was really trying to get that like different type of bass like he's got in a lot of his tunes. Then we got this low bandpass filter. I'm turning it on and off to show you that it's pretty subtle what it's doing, but it is doing a lot. So I got the frequency there. The resonance is turned up a bit. I think this is important for this. We got frequency key at 100%. What this means is if you play a lower note, the filter will be lower, like more closed. And then if you play a higher note, the filter opens up more. And obviously we have this pattern which moves around a lot. So this is going to make a very dynamic bass sound. Like when we go here, right, it's a completely different sound versus if you turn that off, it's a lot more flat. Right, so that's a key to that for sure. The other thing here is the sine shaper. If I turn that off and then back on, you can see it's only at 84%. I didn't even turn the drive up, but it does like that sine shaping to the sound, and it gives it a little bit more of that mid-range grit. The only other thing on this is that we're side chaining it to the kick, same deal as I showed you before where we got the high pass on the side chain, and then we have this layer. So this is a very similar sound to what you just saw, right? Same deal where it's the sine waves detuned a bit and FMing each other. These are at the same octaves though. They've got the bandpass filter with a soft shaper here and that same frequency to key. So it's a very similar thing. I just wanted a slightly grittier sound. And then this one is all about the stereo width. You can see I have chorus here. So here's what it sounds like straight out of the synth. Chorus. And then this align delay. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing the right ear 3 milliseconds ahead of the left ear. And so the sound gets super wide and spread out, as you can hear. We're side chaining this and then high passing it, and then you put that with the other bass, and you go from this to this. It's that super huge, wide, full bass line that you hear in these tracks. Because when I was studying the different tracks, and Scruz does this a little bit too, there's like this really, really wide bass line. But obviously, you can't have your main bass. Like, you wouldn't be able to get this sound and still do the width with it. It would just kind of mess up, and then a lot of fixes you could do to that later would end up messing it up as well. So instead what we do is we make a layer that's similar but adds a bit more of that mid-range grit, and then it's high pass, and then yeah, just doing this like super stereo stuff, and then it's super wide. On the group, I've got two things. I got this EQ8 just cutting a bit of sub. It's just cutting out those nastier frequencies. And I also noticed too, like if you go study those different tracks, it's not always so much like 0 to 100 hertz stuff in the bass line. Like, a lot of those bass lines don't have the most sub, and it allows them to move a little more. So I've literally just cut that a bit at 43 hertz, and then we get this bass mono here on utility. So basically it's just saying everything below 389 hertz is going to be mono. It's good when you have this stuff, because also sometimes you can get some phase issues with the layering and all that. Plus, even with this EQ, you can run into that. So this is just kind of making sure everything is going to be really clean. Then we got this little atmosphere. So yeah, this is like the classic deep house garage kind of string sound. I've made it synthesized from scratch with operator though. It's just playing A sharp, right? The root note that I showed you before of this key. And we've got this sound coming out of operator. So it's also sine waves. That's the funny thing, is that this is also some sine waves FMing each other, where this is up 3 octaves again on the chorus. I've got a little bit of detune, like the tiniest amount, just so it kind of slightly moves over time. And then what we do is put that into a bunch of reverb. Like the reverb's 100% wet, and you can hear it makes it more like a string. Sidechain. And then a high pass filter. Then we got this little chord stub. So this might seem complicated notes wise, but it's actually all just kind of playing around with an A sharp minor chord, except what we did, as you can see, I put the 5th there. So this would be a basic A sharp minor triad, like root 3 5th, and then I've taken the 5th down an octave, right? And then I did add this D sharp here. I guess that's not necessarily in there, but it's still in the scale. You know, it's just a very simple MIDI file. But you can hear it just really goes off the bass line. I mean, there's so much happening with that bass. You know, it just jumps in there a little bit to kind of give us something fresh on top of the beat without taking up too much space for itself. I made this sound with operator. This is also some FM with sine waves. So you can see that's really crucial for these kind of sounds. Now, what we're doing here is we got this. Right, it's the sine wave oscillator with the sustain all the way down and like not that much decay. So it's just a really short, plucky kind of sound. Right? And then I brought in the second oscillator, which is the sine wave many octaves up. You can see that's at 10. And that's detuned a little bit as well. It's not on there too much. Because if you turn it up, right, it kind of gets in your face a little too much. I wanted this to be a bit of a deeper sound. You could turn that up and make something else. Right, but in this case, it just worked better there. We have a bit of chorus, some delay on quarter notes, but I filtered it down so it's not that prominent. Right, it's just in there a bit. Sidechain, and then high pass. Then we got our drums. So the drums all together sound like this. Right, so we start here with kind of like the main drums. We got this 909 hi-hat. Now, cool trick with this one. If you take the sustain down a little tiny bit on your sampler or your simpler, you go from this to this, which sounds subtle. You can even do it more. See how it's kind of making a bit more emphasis on just like the hit at the start of the sound? So it's a really good way to do that, because now what you can do is you can turn this up louder and make it hit more. Like if I turn that off, so you have to kind of bring it down. But then if we turn that sustain back up, it's so subtle. But now this is a lot more of like a, you know, it's got more attack at the start of the sound, more punch. And so it's a really good way to process those and get that kind of thing out of it. The other thing is that it's already a short note in here. You can see these are only like just, yeah, that little short note. So it's already not playing the full sample is this. Right, so if you do that, kind of play a shorter note and then use that sustain thing, you can make this a lot punchier and get a louder sound. 16th note hi-hat, you can see we got quite a bit of swing on here. And this is being sidechained. We got a nice punchy clap. I just pitched it down -1 so it kind of fits better with the groove. We got one rave loop. These are very important, especially I noticed in both of these guys' tracks, honestly, Diffrent and Scruz both use these a lot. So what you want to do, I think, is instead of trying to layer up a bunch of them, just get one, You don't even turn it up that loud. Like, if you notice, these other drums are a lot louder. But it's just giving that undeniable thing in the background. And just that kind of feel that you can only get from these processed loops. I got a little auto pan on that, so it's kind of like volume shaping it as if it's being sidechained to the kick. It's a little better for this to do it with the auto pan though, because you can actually like shape how you want it to work. You know, you can turn this up and make it really tight if you want to. I got mine like somewhere in the middle. Then we got this little snare, which kind of sounds weird on its own if I play it with the hi-hat and clap. So there you go. What we're doing is it's this one snare sample, but by putting it across different pitches on the keyboard, you can kind of make multiple different snares out of it. So this is what I think a lot of people do. Is it sounds like you have like a whole drum rack full of snares, but it's actually just one being pitched in different ways, and then you get this kind of nice swing out of it. And yeah, it's just kind of firing constantly on these 16th notes, jumping off of the hi-hat. Pretty simple there, no processing really needed. The last thing we got is this effects, which if you play it in the track, what it is, it's these two different sounds here, right? Pretty simple stuff. This one I chopped a little. You can see I had to take off a bit of the beginning, and it was like a whole loop, and I just took one part. But what's really cool about these is more so where you're putting them on the beat, right? Because if you put them right, they can really fit into the track well. Like if you hear it with just the kick and hi-hat and snare, right, you can see it hits with the claps on, in this case on the 4, in this case on the 2. So I would recommend this, like these short little effect sounds. I also had to tune this one to match the key of the track, you know, not too hard. But if you put it, you don't just put it on like just right on the downbeat, but put it on like a cool beat that fits with where the clap is. It can kind of do a lot more, and it fits into the groove better. And it's like when you hear these tracks and they sound so tight and groovy, it's because everything is done with this thinking. You know, it's like thinking about even the little effect sounds are going to hit with the clap so that it's all this tight, punchy groove. This just has a little bit of quarter note delay. You can see it's on ping pong, auto pan, sidechain effect, and then we're just high passing it. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments. If you want to see more Speed Garage, definitely let me know. Like I said, you can get this full template at the top of the description on my website. I really don't make a whole lot off of YouTube, but I love to keep showing you guys this stuff. So every little bit of support helps. Thank you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.